I analyzed the minds of every Ghostface. Here's the terrifying truth. Ghostface was never about the mask. Not the knife, not the phone calls, not even the kills. After analyzing every single Ghostface across all 7 films, from Scream to Scream 7, I discovered something disturbing. They all share the same psychological blueprint. Different motives, different personalities, different victims, but the same mind. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Stay until the end, because the final Ghostface in Scream 7 proves this pattern evolved into something far more dangerous than we expected. Act 1. The original fracture. Scream, 1996. Let's begin with the first fracture in Woodsboro. In Scream, we meet Billy Loomis, played by Skeet Ulrich, and Stu Macher, played by Matthew Lillard. On the surface, jealous boyfriend, peer pressure psycho sidekick. But psychologically, Billy is driven by narcissistic injury. His father's affair with Sydney's mother shattered his sense of identity. Instead of processing betrayal, Billy rewrites reality. In his mind, he's not a killer. He's restoring balance. Stu? Stu represents identity diffusion. He doesn't kill for revenge, he kills for belonging. His famous peer pressure line isn't a joke, it's confession. Stu lacks a core self. Notice this pattern. One Ghostface is ideological, the other is dependent. This pairing becomes a recurring structure. This wasn't random chaos. It was emotional grievance weaponized. Act 2. Fame and franchise delusion. Scream 2. In Scream 2, the killers evolve. Mrs. Loomis, played by Laurie Metcalf, and Mickey Altieri, played by Timothy Oliphant. Mrs. Loomis represents maternal vengeance psychosis. She doesn't just want Sydney dead, she wants narrative correction. She believes the media villainized her son. She's trying to edit reality. Mickey? Mickey is the first Ghostface obsessed with fame. He wants to be caught. He wants the trial. He wants to blame movies and become a symbol. This is the birth of something new. Ghostface as media virus. And from this point forward, every Ghostface becomes obsessed with controlling the story. Act 3. The half-brother syndrome. Scream 3. Scream 3 introduces Roman Bridger, played by Scott Foley. Roman is different. He acts alone, which makes him psychologically significant. Roman suffers from rejection trauma and entitlement rage. As Sydney's half-brother, abandoned by their mother, he develops what psychologists call a compensatory grandiosity complex. He believes he deserves Sydney's life. Roman isn't killing for revenge, he's killing for authorship. He orchestrated the origin. He manipulated Billy. He sees himself as the true creator of the Ghostface mythology. Roman marks the shift from emotional killers to architects of chaos. And that shift gets darker. Act 4. Remake culture and delusional fame. Scream 4. In Scream 4, we meet Jill Roberts, played by Emma Roberts, and Charlie Walker, played by Rory Culkin. Jill is arguably the most disturbing Ghostface. Why? Because she doesn't want revenge. She wants followers. Jill embodies pathological narcissism shaped by social media culture. She believes trauma equals celebrity. She wants to survive as the final girl. She wants to be famous for surviving what she orchestrated. Charlie? Again, the pattern repeats. Ideological leader, dependent accomplice. Charlie craves validation from Jill the way Stu craved validation from Billy. Notice how every second killer seeks approval from the dominant one? This isn't coincidence. It's hierarchy. Ghostface always has an alpha. Act 5. Toxic Fandom and Legacy. Scream 2022. Scream reinvents the pattern. Richie Kirsch, played by Jack Quaid, and Amber Freeman, played by Mikey Madison. Their motive? Fixing the franchise. They represent toxic fandom radicalization. Richie isn't just obsessed, he's ideologically possessed by fictional purity. He believes he's protecting the legacy of Stab. Amber? Pure volatility. She's thrill-driven, almost ecstatic in violence. Here, the dynamic shifts slightly. Both killers are believers. No revenge, no personal grievance, just fandom extremism. This is the first time Ghostface isn't about family trauma. It's about internet identity. And that sets up the most psychologically dangerous version yet. Act 6. Grief as Justification. Scream 6. In Scream 6, we face a trio. Detective Bailey, played by Dermot Mulroney, Quinn Bailey, played by Liana Liberato, Ethan Landry, played by Jack Champion. This is vengeance disguised as family unity. Bailey mirrors Mrs. Loomis, parental rage amplified. But here's the difference. They operate like a coordinated unit. This is collective grievance psychology. They don't see themselves as villains, they see themselves as avenging Richie. And for the first time, Ghostface becomes militarized, strategic, layered, institutionally protected. And this is where the truth becomes undeniable. After analyzing Ghostface from the first 6 films, here's the pattern. 1. Every Ghostface begins with grievance. 2. That grievance mutates into entitlement. 3. Entitlement demands narrative control. 4. Narrative control justifies murder. Ghostface is not about horror. Ghostface is about ego collapse. Every killer experiences identity failure, and instead of rebuilding themselves, they rewrite the world. And the most disturbing part? As society evolves, from 90s revenge to 2020's online radicalization, Ghostface evolves with it. The mask stays the same, the psychology adapts. And now, since you've stayed with us this far into the video, here is a special psychological profile of Ghostface from Scream 7. By the end, you'll understand what sets this killer apart and why it works thematically. This Ghostface is not motivated by revenge, not fame, not franchise purity. He is motivated by narrative reconstruction. Unlike Billy or Jill, this killer doesn't want to insert himself into the story. He wants to recreate the original trauma. That is far more disturbing. Primary trait: myth manipulation. Previous Ghostfaces justified themselves. This one performs. Marco weaponizes deepfake technology, voice manipulation, psychological triggers, Sidney's personal history. When he morphs into Nancy Loomis, Roman Bridger, Dewey Riley, he isn't taunting, he's destabilizing. This Ghostface understands that trauma is not just memory, it's pattern recognition. By digitally resurrecting the past, he forces Sidney to relive psychological vulnerability. This is advanced emotional warfare. Secondary trait: ideological radicalization. Jessica represents the ideological core. Her belief system? Sidney became powerful through violence. Trauma creates strength. Suffering manufactures survival. This is a warped interpretation of Sidney's arc. Jessica isn't obsessed with killing Sidney. She wants to turn Tatum into a new Sidney. That is cult logic. It mirrors extremist thinking. pain purifies. Jessica's psychology includes trauma bonding projection, survivor envy, identity theft through emulation. She believes she is empowering Tatum. That moral inversion is what makes her dangerous. Marco's background in information technology is crucial. He creates Stu not as a prank, but as psychological resurrection. By presenting an aged, scarred Stu Macher from Scream, he weaponizes unresolved mythology. Stu represents unfinished business in the fandom. Marco exploits conspiracy theory culture, deepfake paranoia, digital identity fluidity. This Ghostface does not rely on physical dominance. He relies on epistemic confusion. The audience, like Sydney, doesn't know what's real. That's the evolution. This is the most disturbing layer. Jessica kills her own son Lucas because she sees him as too similar to her abusive husband. That is psychological transference at its darkest. She eliminates what reflects weakness in her life, then attempts to re-engineer trauma in Tatum. This mirrors what Roman tried in Scream 3, but escalated. Roman wanted authorship. Jessica wants transformation. She is not creating a victim. She is creating a successor. That's cult mother psychology. The duality structure. This Ghostface pairing is unique. Previous films had alpha narcissist plus validation follower. Here we have technological illusionist, Marco, ideological architect, Jessica. Marco builds the myth. Jessica believes in it. It's less about dominance hierarchy and more about ideological partnership. That makes them more stable and more dangerous. When Stu forces Sydney to watch a captive loved one at home, echoing the original Woodsboro murders, this is intentional ritual. He's not improvising. He's reenacting the origin myth. This is ritualistic repetition compulsion. In trauma psychology, repetition compulsion occurs when individuals recreate traumatic scenarios to gain control over them. Marco and Jessica are recreating Woodsboro to gain narrative dominance over it. They believe if they can restage the original structure, they can overwrite it. What makes this Ghostface different? Let's compare. Billy equals personal revenge. Mrs. Loomis equals maternal vengeance. Roman equals abandonment rage. Jill equals fame narcissism. Richie equals toxic fandom. Bailey's equals collective grievance. This Ghostface equals mythological manipulation. He doesn't want to be remembered. He wants to control memory. That is evolution. The scariest moment in your plot isn't the killings. It's when Jessica says, Sydney succeeded because she killed those who tormented her. That's distorted hero worship. Jessica read Sydney's autobiography and internalized the wrong lesson. Instead of seeing resilience, she saw retaliation. That reflects a broader cultural phenomenon. People misinterpret survival stories as blueprints for power. This Ghostface is born from misreading legacy. Ghostface 7 reflects deep fake anxiety, identity instability, parasocial obsession, trauma commodification, myth distortion. It evolves the franchise without repeating the formula. There is still dual killers, a reveal, a final confrontation. But psychologically, this is the first Ghostface who tries to rewrite reality digitally and ideologically at the same time. This Ghostface suffers from narrative delusion disorder, self-appointed myth rewriter, trauma projection, moral inversion, identity parasitism. He doesn't see Sydney as an enemy. He sees her as source material, and that is more disturbing than revenge, because revenge ends. Myth-making doesn't. Final diagnosis of the films. After analyzing every Ghostface from Scream all the way to Scream 6, and even the horrifying differences of Scream 7, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Ghostface isn't really a killer. Ghostface is a story people tell themselves. Billy told himself he was avenging his family. Mrs. Loomis believed she was defending her son. Roman believed he was correcting the past. Jill believed fame justified murder. Richie believed he was saving a franchise. And now, the newest Ghostfaces believe they're rewriting Sidney Prescott's legacy. But every one of them made the same mistake. They thought wearing the mask would make them the main character. Instead, it turned them into the next body on the floor. Because the real secret of the Scream franchise was never about Ghostface. It was always about the person who refuses to become one. That's why Sidney Prescott keeps surviving. Not because she's stronger, not because she's smarter, but because she never lets the story turn her into the villain. And that might be the ultimate twist of the entire franchise. Ghostface keeps trying to rewrite the story, but Sidney keeps proving that some stories can't be rewritten. So here's the real question for horror fans. If Ghostface is a myth anyone can wear, who do you think came closest to becoming the true Ghostface? Billy? Jill? Richie? Or the killer in Scream 7? Let me know in the comments, because the scariest part of the Scream movies isn't the mask. It's how many people believe they deserve to wear it.